What is the fella's name on third base?
What is the fella's name on second base?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
I don't know. Third base.
Welcome to the WA Australia podcast. It's the podcast for Australian shooters who just want the political interference taken out of shooting.
Okay, so welcome to another episode of Gun News Australia, brought to you by Politics Reloaded and Gun Traders Australia. And I have with me Perth shooter Jon Laird. How are you doing, John?
Very well, thanks, Neil.
Okay, so you're in Perth and you are a shooter. What do you shoot?
Yeah, so recreational shooter, and do you want me to go through the calibers that I have?
Oh, just in a broad sense, just get a feel for what you're up to.
Sure. Yep. So I live out in the Eastern Wheatbelt, and I've got a brother who has a acreage out there, and so we do a bit of vermin control, some target shooting. Just a pretty standard cornflake box shooter, I guess you might say.
Okay, so with the new laws that have come into place in Western Australia, my understanding is that the 5-gun limit applies to you. And how did that affect you? What did you have and what did you have to get rid of?
Yeah, so it was July last year. I purchased another firearm, and that very day I rang the West Australian Firearms Registry and said that, I've acquired this firearm, I'm wanting to bring it onto my licence, and I was told that as I already had 6 firearms, I would first need to dispose of 2 of them if I wanted to bring on this new firearm. And that obviously they were applying ahead of time the anticipated legislation, which has just been enacted, as you know, here in the West, and the new Firearms Act.
Yeah. Did you manage to sell them, or were they given as part of the buyback? Yeah,
so one of the firearms was handed back via the buyback, an old 22. It was an old 22 and not worth a lot of money, but, it had sentimental significance for the family. I taught one of my daughters how to hunt rabbits with it, and my intention was that she would inherit it. But, got to deal with the world of real politics here in the West. The other firearm, I was able to sell that to another shooter.
Okay, so you got rid of the bad gun, at least at the ridiculous prices that they offered, even though for this particular gun, forget about the sentimental value in terms of the actual gun itself, it's probably okay. But this is the thing about the buyback, which, as you know, has been extended a bit. It was at the shocking level of compensation. Yeah,
a blunt instrument.
Okay, so we put out a couple of weeks ago a video where we talked about legal actions that we have taken in Western Australia, and the cases that we had run and won. You contacted me as a result. Said, "Hey, yeah, I've got this matter," and we'd had a bit of a chat. It seemed to me that, in fact, there really was the basis for something to run with, and I'll go onto that in a minute. So what's happened is that you and I talked, and now we've filed in the SAT a matter which is basically challenge or taking a hit on the 5-gun limit.
Yes, that's right. And just to complete the story, I think I should mention that even though the requirements were complied with months ago, 9 months later, at this point in time, the new firearm still hasn't been brought onto my licence. That's pretty annoying as well. And, I feel sympathy for the gun shop who's had to hang on to this weapon, and no doubt many others. So can't be a pretty time for them either.
Yeah.
But yes.
That's all right. No, we'll unpick this as much as we can. And we've got, I think, a bit of time on our side now because the matter's been filed. I'll just quickly show the advice you got from the SAT, the State Admin Tribunal. So that's the matter. It's been filed, and I think we've now got a a date, at least perhaps an initial directions hearing for in May, early May, which we will look after. We'll basically go along and we'll do what we can. So now, in terms of what it is that we're looking to do, in your words, what do you want to do with this case?
Well, the first thing is that I would like to highlight what I believe was the unlawful actions of the West Australian Police in imposing the terms of the anticipated legislation ahead of time. I received nothing in writing about the process. As far as I was able to ascertain, there is nothing or was nothing in writing, and yet here we are being told you have to get rid of firearms. To me, that's unethical, unprofessional, and actually undermines the rule of law. And I wish I could say that this is just a one-off event here in the West, but regrettably, I think it's actually one in a whole chain of events that's been occurring over here with the government gaslighting shooters.
It's definitely part of a bigger picture. So this case is not the right forum to actually challenge the authority of the state to make the laws, but it is about the procedures, the processes that sit behind it, which are infamous. I mean, they've had a lot of airtime over the last year. We know exactly what's been happening. I mean, the SMSs and everything else, as you said, ahead of time. And I've identified three things which we're going to be, well, we are yet to actually go to the stage of actually being able to argue this. But things that come to my mind are, as you said, there's the police acting ahead of time. There was the fact that in your case, there was no written notice of anything. It was actually done by phone call, which is not a proper way to advise somebody of the laws affecting them, or to indicate your rights of appeal and everything else. So that's the second one. And the third one is straight out compensation, especially when there was no legal authority for the police to act the way they did. So
yeah, I think they're all valid points.
We may succeed, we may not, but we're going to give it a go. This is the first case that I'm aware of under the new laws, and kind of excited to really, be part of that. And the good thing is it's familiar territory for us as well in terms of going at least through the SAT. Now, what we want to do, we've covered the filing fee. Yep. Really keen to see if we can bring in a good barrister. Now, because this all happened in the last few days, we haven't had time to even think about that. But what we want to do, there's a couple of barristers I know who I think are really good for this. So we'll do what we can. But I'll also encourage shooters, if you are interested in this case and you want to support it, it's in court, it's filed, the direction hearing's coming up. There's a QR code on the screen which you can scan, which will take you to a donations page, and or you can actually, especially for the audio version, you can go to tinyurl.com/5limit case, which is again tinyurl.com/5limit case, all one word, and that'll take you to that donation page.
Well, yeah, that's terrific, Neil, and I would like to offer my specific thanks for Politics Reloaded covering the filing fee for the case at the SAT, and I would also like to say that yourself has been formally nominated in the matter as my representative. So I'd like to point out to the shooting public that Politics Reloaded has runs on the board for fighting on their behalf, and so I hope that they get behind us in this, because it's far bigger than just me being inconvenienced with my situation. Well, I don't have to go into details about that. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for that. They're really gracious words, and I appreciate that. And whilst the jurisdiction of what we're doing is limited, it could open up a can of worms. And that's what I'm really hoping for. And look, that'll obviously then get momentum in its own rights. And I really appreciate that. And updates on the case, I mean, we will report back in terms of the major things, but in terms of those who are interested in following it, the best way is actually if you become a member of Politics Reloaded on our website, politicsreloaded.com, or you become a member of our YouTube channel. we're going to be starting this month. We're going to be putting out, sort of short videos every Friday, which will cover the news we may not have covered in the main stories that we put out. So, John, look, thank you for that. We're there. We're really happy to be in that space. So thank you very much for that.
My pleasure, Neil. I'm very pleased about it as well. So yeah, thank you again for your encouragement. And I'd just like to, if I may, put a call out to other disaffected shooters, particularly here in the West. People who've lost much more money than I have in the debacle it's been the buyback. And I know that there are people distressed, issues of property letters, and also we're all grappling with the amount of red tape that this new legislation brings in, which I might add was rammed through the West Australian Parliament with no meaningful debate whatsoever, no opportunity for the public to have an input into it. Unfortunately, the Labor government has shown its arrogance in this matter. And I would just, for those shooters who haven't actually thought about it, particularly across the breadth of Australia, this does affect you. What's occurring over here will come to your door. And the West Australian government is, I think, well exceeded its mandate in the breadth of what it's brought in with this legislation. So I genuinely hope that that shooters stop being so passive. If I could just point out to West Australian shooters that the State Administrative Tribunal is essentially available for you to bring matters of concern, but it's also designed as a place. So essentially, you're not required to bring a solicitor. It's meant to be a low-cost equation. So I'm no legal person, and you don't need to be to get involved. So you can either you can present matters to the State Administrative Tribunal yourself for redress, and as well as getting on board with what Politics Reloaded is seeking to do here.
Do my job for me, so I'm being outdone on my own show. So no, thank you for that. No, that was really good.
Sorry about that, Neil.
That's all right. I'll cut that out. No, wait. So no, you did right. I mean, the stories that we've heard about people who've lost property, heirlooms, is basically it's still all at 96. This is probably a little bit worse because of some of the legacy laws that are in place that are affecting clubs. The other day, last video we covered. The fact that visitors to clubs are going to need two character references. You've got, again, these mental health checks and all these sort of things, and the fees that you guys are paying over there are way over the odds compared to other states.
Yeah, they're punitive in my opinion.
Yeah, you've got the serviceability certificates when you buy a gun, which you don't have. It's not even in the NFA. So yeah, you've really got your work cut out for you over there. The one thing which I did say in the last video, which I'm going to repeat now, and I'll be repeating again and again and again, is with the federal election coming up, sure, guns are a state issue, not a federal issue. Doesn't matter. Take it out on your federal Labor candidates. Tell them, it's a state issue. You don't care. You're going to vote on the gun issue anyway. And the message will get back to where it needs to get back. And that's this whole idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 1996, of course, proved that it's not exclusively a state issue.
Yeah.
And, Australian shooters should never forget that.
Yeah, it's an argument of convenience to say, it's, up to the state, and you're right, you've got the NFA, which is the Home Affairs, I think, actually is custody of that, and it's always had custody of that. People keep talking about it and going back to it. So no, the fingerprints are on it. So seriously, Western Australian shooters, do that. But, conflate the issue, tell your local Labor candidate how you're voting and why, because this is still fresh. You just got to put as much pressure as you can on the State Labor Party.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, you mentioned fees, and I went along to the Leschenault Pistol Club a year or two back, which is, I think, one of the oldest gun clubs here in the West, and a good friend of mine, he was the president. He's still an active member there. gave me the Cook's tour. But the thing which was really brought home to me was how eye-wateringly expensive it was to be a pistol shooter here in the West. I mean, it is prohibitive for many people. And I think I mentioned to you before in other conversation that I think that the fee structure here is discriminatory. And I'm just pondering this morning if this too could be brought up in the SAT.
Really not. Because it'll be in the regulations. But it is, look, I think this is yet another issue that WA shooters are facing, because unlike other states, those fees are very high. I mean, a permit to acquire, and where I'm in Victoria, I think it's probably gone up a bit, but it was around $9 or something like that. 240, $50 in WA for the same thing, and you got you got annual licenses, so it's not like a one-time fee, which is what we have. And the other thing about the fees in WA is they're not subject to public to consultation. They're not actually put out there to be challenged. Yeah. What happens in other states is that regulations and all the costings and everything that sit behind them, that's put out for public consultation. Now, most people may not go through it, but you can. And so there's the independent eyes that go over it. Whereas in Western Australia, the fees are set by the Department of Treasury. So it's whatever they want. And so it can be punitive. It may not be, it may not actually reflect the cost of what the police are doing. It can be on any basis, and that's
I don't think there's any. Yeah. So there's no question that it's got no relation to actual cost. And then if you want to bring a new license firearm, you go through a new license process. So you pay $300 to bring a license, an additional firearm on,
which is well outside the National Firearms Agreement that they keep going on about anyway, because the NFA specifically talks about permits to acquire.
Yeah.
And it does not talk about licensing of firearms.
Yeah. There's if the momentum was there, there's that's one amongst a few issues.
Well, look,
on the table.
There may be, as a result of this, there may well be other things that come out of the woodwork, and if it means we're running multiple cases in the SAT, then we're running multiple cases in the SAT. You're the first come off the rank, and I think that's really good. I'm pleased to be here.
Actually, I didn't mention, and it is a touchy subject, but it was claimed by someone else that the infamous map that was published on the front of the Sunday Times, it was claimed, I don't know if it's true or not, that there were actually shooters whose homes were burgled and firearms taken, and arguably as a consequence of that. Now, if that occurred, if we could get some of those people to come forward, wow.
Yeah, I've got my diary every year to get to FOI, the Western Australian Police, about certain information on burglaries.
Oh, yeah.
As in anything, it takes a while, as you can appreciate, for the information to be collected and collated. But don't worry, that's in my diary. I do that stuff. I don't really report about it. There's nothing that I've got to show. Then I, won't air it. But
Yeah.
Okay, Jon Laird from WA from Perth. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck with the case.
Thank you very much, Neil. Much appreciated.
Okay, we'll see you later.
That's all right.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Gun News Australia. If you're a subscriber to our YouTube channel, you'll have access to every episode of Gun News Australia as they're scheduled to be published. But now you can also join the channel. Joining the channel means you'll get access to those episodes before they're published more widely. And you'll have access to our Friday night live streams, which is starting soon. So to find out more, select the join button on our YouTube channel or see the description in this episode for details.